Good morning, everyone. Righty, don't usually start vlog posts where I'm arriving back home. Today, Mummy took Jasper to school, which was really helpful. However, somehow it had escaped our attention that it was supposed to be a costume day. And Jasper was like, I am not going into school, being the only one in school uniform. I just had to go drop off a costume for him. Just going to have a quick fly of the old Mavic Air, I think. And then I'm heading into town to do some shopping. It's all a bit boring. Today's vlog post is going to be a bit of a cop-out, I think. I had a very interesting conversation with Vincent yesterday. Vincent is the chap with the new 40 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf. If you haven't already checked out that video, I recommend it. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to cut back to a bit of that interesting conversation now. I started off with the Nissan Leaf. Yes, that was my first electric vehicle ever. Yeah. So I'm very fond of these cars.
I started off with the Leaf as well.
Yeah?
It was a bit of a... At the time, there was, I think the Mitsubishi was being launched at about the same time.
The plug-in hybrid?
Yeah, no, the Mitsubishi IMIEV.
Oh, right. Ooh.
And I know, and I looked at it and I thought, whatever. And I think the Leaf, the original Leaf, just offered so much more.
Yeah.
And it clearly became a far better seller than the Mitsubishi. The
Mitsubishi didn't kind of ever strike me as a real car. It kind of looked like something that leapt out of a sci-fi movie.
It's more of a city car, really. And I think at the end of the day, funny enough, as the years went by, I ended up getting one for my daughter, not the Mitsubishi version, but the Citroen C0 version. Yeah. And I went all the way to Newcastle to get it. Now, the interesting thing is, it's a great city car, but just don't take them on long journeys.
Yeah.
Motorways. But they're okay just for, shopping.
They did have CHAdeMO, didn't they?
They did have CHAdeMO, yeah. But, I mean, in terms of speed, stability and everything else, they're not great for speed.
They don't look like they were designed for motorway cruising.
No, absolutely not.
You started with a Nissan Leaf in 2011.
That's correct.
Right. And Vincent was just telling me about how he was driving to Bristol and ran into a series of rapid chargers that people thought were there, but they actually weren't rapid, they were just ordinary ones.
Just ordinary chargers. Ecotricity had on their website that there was a rapid charger memory services. Got there wasn't one. Rang them, they said, oh yes there is. And I said, where? And they had a look and said, oh sorry, we made a mistake, there isn't one. So stuck there for hours. Eventually got to Bristol, searched all the way around the yard for one, couldn't find one, went in, spoke to the dealer and he said, oh yeah, we've got a rapid charger around the back. So I said, please show me. Took me around and he pointed at this little 3.6 kilowatt post. And my eyes just closed in disbelief.
Back in the early days of EVs, you really did have to have a very understanding wife, didn't you?
Yes.
I drove to Newquay using Nissan dealership charge posts, which was extremely stressful because they close the doors at 5 o'clock, so you've got to be done by then. And you're driving an electric car, you're trying to drive slowly to conserve range, but you don't want to get there so late that you can't charge.
That's right.
And then I went to Scotland, which only took 14 charges. But that was partly because that was a little bit later when they had some Ecotricity quick charges on the motorway, but they only had one. So I would stop at every single one in case the next one I got to was broken. Yeah. And then I would have the power to skip that. Whereas if I ever skipped one deliberately, I would then be relying on the next one to be working. And for anyone who's been driving EVs in this country for any length of time, relying on Ecotricity quick chargers to be working was a very bad idea.
Absolutely.
Still not sensible, but it was like suicidal. Quick bit of shopping and then a quick ride just because it happens to be dry for once. We also talked about how a 40 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf could actually be the perfect taxi in and around London. So 40 kilowatt hours is enough to drive you around London for, that's part of a week, I would have thought.
I think, well, that's about, no, on a daily basis, I've been doing about, anywhere between, say, 90 and 120 miles per day. And that will include, obviously, trips around London, trips to the airport, even trips to Gatwick and back. Well, Gatwick and back, the mileage normally go up to just under 200. But if I'm sort of able to drive around London, trips to the airport and, east, west, north, south London, on a daily basis, and the total mileage is only just over 100, then I think the range on this will be ideal for that purpose. Plus the ability to rapid charge. You know, if you take sort of a 40-minute break and plug in. And I don't know if you're aware, but TfL, in conjunction with Polar, a Chargemaster, have installed a number of rapid chargers around central London now. I say central London, around London, and the idea is to encourage private hire vehicles and taxis to go electric.
Yeah. If the maximum you're ever going to really do is a couple of 100 miles, then you don't have to worry about the fact that the battery will heat up a little bit more than you might like. Because that's one of the things that people have said about this Nissan Leaf, as well as the older ones, is that if you drive and charge, then after the second or third charge, you get to the point where the car wants a rest before it'll do anything else.
Okay.
Which is, you know, not ideal for those really long journeys, like cross Europe type journeys. You know, and that's where it is different to say something like a Tesla, because those have been designed with battery cooling to the point where you could pick up your car on day one, and then you and a team of drivers could just put 200,000 miles on it without a break. Wow. You know, it doesn't, the motor and the battery are not going to overheat through use unless you're like on a racetrack or something, but you know, on roads driving reasonably normally, they'll just carry on forever. Whereas the Nissan Leaf, without that active cooling, the temperature does creep up as you charge and drive.
Even in the winter when it's cold?
Yeah, I think so, because it's a bigger battery.
Yes.
You see, you didn't have that with the 24 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf. When I drove up to Scotland with my 14 charges, it only went up 1 or 2 notches on the battery temperature because I drove quite slowly, and the air temperature was like 3 or 4 degrees outside. It's the limit of having a bigger battery with without that active cooling, basically.
So they've not addressed that matter then with this car?
No, they haven't. I know it is. It's something they will address, I think, with the 60 kilowatt hour one, because they'll need to. I mean, you know, when you rapid charge these things, they do build up heat. Ecotricity
are talking about ramping up their CHAdeMO rapid chargers for the larger battery capacity that's going to be available in the future.
Oh, what, up to 100 kilowatts?
They reckon, yes.
Really? They're going to do that with CCS, do you know?
I think it's across the board, because I think what they're looking at is that maybe not this year, but next year, the year after, electric cars, whether it be the Volkswagen e-Golf, whether it's be the Hyundai or the Nissan, if they're going to have sort of 60 kilowatt plus battery sizes, they need to be charged a lot quicker. Plus you've got the iPace. There is a bit of a misunderstanding, I think, often with people, though, when it comes to quick charging, because you'd think that a 100 kilowatt charger would be twice as fast as a 50. Because of the way the battery tapers as it fills up, you only really get an extra 25–30% speed improvement. So for example, take my Tesla Model S, it'll charge about sort of 80% faster on a 120 kilowatt supercharger than it does on a 40 kilowatt CHAdeMO. By the time you get to about 70%, the car is charging on the supercharger at 40 odd, 45 kilowatts anyway. I've never actually bought one of the adapters. I never thought I would probably need one, for the simple reason I looked at the spread of the superchargers. Now, interestingly, people talk about getting the CHAdeMO adapter for Europe, but have you seen the charge mount for Teslas in Europe now? The charge.
Oh, you don't. We went to northern Italy and didn't use anything except superchargers. The reason why I would go with a CHAdeMO adapter is because it gives me options of when to stop. You know, I've got a 4-year-old in the back, and you know, a wife. For example, we were driving, you know, a couple of months ago, I think it was, and Jasper suddenly goes in the back, I need a poo-poo! So it's emergency, pull off the motorway, first service station we find, go in, he goes to the loo. By the time he's come back to the car, we've got an extra 30 miles of range, which was what I needed. I was planning on having a little stop to get that 30 miles anyway. So the fact that it could be tied in with a stop we were doing anyway just meant that there was no inconvenience at all. You don't have that flexibility with superchargers because they're not everywhere. Whereas obviously the CHAdeMOs, they really are, they're everywhere. Up to a certain capacity and a certain charging level, it's kind of a horses for courses thing with electric vehicles. Sometimes people just don't need a bigger range and they don't need faster charging. The thing with electric vehicles is they do take a bit of experience, I suppose, because they are different. Not different in a bad way, just different. I guess that's where the actual salesman at the dealership can help, but I do think that if you sell EVs, you should probably drive one. That sounds like it makes sense to me. Almost done with the shopping now. Turns out the shop I came here for is closed. So, right, back here again. You know, I can't believe it. I've done about almost 60 miles. Just obviously one of those days. On the upside, I have done everything I needed to do. Yes! Everything except the editing, that is. I think it makes sense if I wrap things up now. I'm gonna grab some lunch, have a coffee, do my editing, go grab Jasper, and then pack, ready for tomorrow, yes! So, I hope you've enjoyed today's vlog post. If you have, remember to like it, share it, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you tomorrow for the next instalment of my daily vlog. Bye! Just a little way of getting a bit more value out of that, because we had loads and loads of conversation. I wound up with like, I don't know, an hour and something of footage, and obviously I would have tried and compress that down to 12 minutes, which is difficult when actually there's loads of interesting stuff being said.